Welcome to Her Ink Empire. I'm Justine Almaraz, and this is the podcast that redefines what's possible for you in the tattoo industry and in your tattoo education, not only in technical skills, but in business. This show is for fine artists, creatives, visionaries, artists of all kinds, even doodlers, who are ready to not just build a career, but a legacy. Here we merge mastery, freedom, and creative power to surpass the outdated industry norms, the outdated rules, and step fully into our creative power and roles as leaders in our communities. If you've ever felt like there has to be a better way, a better option to learn tattooing, to earn in this industry, and to lead in tattooing, you're in the right place. So let's build your empire, one bold, daring step at a time. Let's dive in.
I'm so honored and grateful to have you here, Jade. Thank you for saying yes to this
Thank you for having me. And so honored to be, in the space with you. And let's do it.
Yeah, thank you.
in.
Cool. So you're living in Vancouver now.
Mm-hmm.
When did you leave Hong Kong and go to Vancouver?
So I moved to Vancouver last year. So it's a recent move. And I've kind of been in and out of different places my whole life. I was in the US for a while, the UK for a while, but I was in Hong Kong through the pandemic. And that's actually when I quit my job at the beginning of it. I was working as an art dealer. I was in art sales, working at an art gallery. So art has always been my thing, but now it's just in a different light. But yeah, it wasn't serving me, my job and that career and that path. And so I felt the calling, felt it. It came through during meditation one day to become an art therapist. It was just art therapy, go learn more about it. And so I was like, okay. And I just, decided to quit my job and train, get another degree in art therapy. And then from there, the institution that I did it at was in Vancouver. So it kind of came full circle after I finished my degree. I worked in Hong Kong for a couple of years, and then I felt like I just needed a change. And I wanted to be in community that had more space for healing and art and conversations like this that I felt like I wasn't able to get in Hong Kong. And so I moved here with my partner last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what was the last thing you said?
No, it's been a journey.
Yeah, definitely, literally. Do you think you said it was Hong Kong, but do you think what was it also about the fine art industry that kind of felt off? Because I think there's something big there to talk about.
Oh, so many thoughts. We're gonna go there. Okay.
Now we're going there. Because I teach my artists, my students, we can be free and work on our own and develop our own clientele and collector base.
Yeah.
Separate from the gallery fine art system. And there are other options to that because it doesn't fit for everyone. So I'd love to hear what your experience is.
Oh my gosh. I love that you do that, and I want to talk to you more about about that model because I left the industry because I just felt like it was sucking the soul out of art. It was just I was trading art that, the artists themselves weren't even really speaking to, and it was just becoming this commodity that was being churned out.
Right.
And it was soulless. It was soulless, and I felt like I was making art property, and it just completely, I was devaluing it, and I didn't want to be a part of that system. And it also made myself being the person who was selling and liaising with the artists, it it made me also kind of lose my spark in in why I even like went into the work in the first place. Like I studied art history as an undergrad in my bachelor's, and that's because I love looking at art, and I just love like observing people's creativity. I love seeing people's truth through what they create, and it's just like the most magical thing. But when it loses that personal touch, especially I was working in a very large gallery, like a corporate large gallery, and I felt like was devaluing the message that the artist had to send. And of course there are galleries that are doing amazing work, who are so supportive and who are so just like in tune and aligned with their artists, and who are, not ripping artists off with like commissions and everything like that. But the gallery that I was working in and the model that I was working was, I saw a lot of flaws. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Really, a really valuable acknowledgement to the realities of what being the dream like successful artist looks like, and like what that can really feel like when you're actually in it, and it might not be actually what we're seeking and working so hard for ultimately, you know.
Because it's like all we really want, yeah, is as individuals, we want freedom, right? We want to be able to live our lives, live our truths, especially as like artists. We want to be able to create and express, and for our voice to be expressed, for our art and for just our products to be out there in the world and appreciated for what it is. And I think the model of like, of course, there's a beautiful part of like being supported by a structure that can help you do all of the nitty-gritty stuff and the admin stuff that you don't want to do, as some of us don't, as visionaries don't oftentimes. But also there's a very fine line at where that can start to actually eat away at your agency and at the freedom, because then it's like, oh, like when's the next exhibition? Oh, when's the next exhibition? And it's like, I can imagine if I were an artist producing art and I could actually, like you said, like there's this model of like, I can be sovereign and I can create, I can sell 100% of the profit goes to me if I sell it. Like that's, if it can make that work, that's like the freest thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
The freest thing.
I love that. I love that you're teaching that. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Powerful. It's important.
Yeah. So you mentioned something, the product, and I know you have a lot of juiciness to share about just the process, and so much of what I teach is about the intuitive art making process. And I want to hear what you have to say, because ultimately we are creators making a product, but so much of it's about process. And then from your perspective as a healer, as an art therapist, and visionary entrepreneur, everything, where do you find the most value, and find others find the value in process, product? Is it one or the other?
I think it's both. I think it depends on, as the creator, as the artist, it depends on your intent. I think as an art therapist, what I always say it's process over product. It's never about the product. Of course, at the end of it, if you have a product that you feel like really resonates and really feels like it holds your energy, which it usually will, if you're in the process with it, then like that's a product you should be proud of, even if it doesn't like look aesthetically a certain way, or it doesn't look like quote unquote something you'd want to hang on a wall. But that's still, your truth in a product. But going back to with art therapy, because the nature of it is that I really want people and my clients to really understand that everyone is creative and that everyone can make art, and like art doesn't have to look, again, like quote unquote beautiful. Like it doesn't have to look like beautiful paints or beautiful lines perfectly composed together. It can, but it doesn't have to look that way. And that like when we can free ourselves from that like construct, that like museum gallery construct, it allows us to realize that like art is really us tapping into our inner child, which is, the intuition part of it. And like all of us have an inner child that wants to explore creativity in some way. It's like all kids are so creative. All kids make art, all kids are finger painting. And
Mhm.
so art therapy is really about like the process of coming back to that spark, and of expressing ourselves non-verbally in ways that we can't express verbally. And that you don't have to be an artist to be able to do that. You can be, but you don't have to be. But then it's also like, an artist that goes to art therapy and practices art therapy. It can be both. It's like you can be in the process, you can let it be messy, you can free yourself in it. And it can also be a composed piece of art. It's like what you need, the process is just what you need. And so, yeah, whatever you need.
Right. Yeah. And then it comes to, well, what defines someone, really owning the title artist, calling themselves an artist, like, okay, well,
Oh,
you're doing art therapy, you're expressing yourself creatively for fun. And then all of a sudden, what's that line in the sand that says, okay, wait, now I've crossed that and I'm
yeah.
calling myself an artist now and
Yeah.
owning.
I feel like people are really scared of the word art in our like society. Like this is what I've gleaned from my time as an art therapist is that I have a lot of like people come in who ask me, do I have to know how to do art to do art therapy? And I'm like, no. Right? For all of the reasons I've just said. But then it's like also this I've noticed with a lot of people in an art therapy session, it's like this fear of like touching art materials, and there's this kind of like fear of like actually letting it be intuitive, which is like I know what you teach. A lot of people will just like, as we first start in art therapy, we'll just use one corner of the page or we'll, use one like you use the pencil and it's just very rigid and we're kind of just very scared. And that's a part of, the fear that we want to work through. But yeah, but I think people are just, I think a lot of people have been like told that they're just not artistic or not creative. And you're just told that like, oh, like once you turn 14, you shouldn't be making art anymore. And so you squash it down and then you think that's just not a part of your vocabulary. And then I don't know. I think that's a shame because it's just like we're all artists in our own way. And I think art also doesn't just pertain to visual art, of course, right? It's like there are so many ways in which people express their art. Singing, poetry, dancing, like cooking is an art, like building Legos is an art, arguably gardening is an art. You can make anything an artistic practice with the intention of like being curious and like letting your creativity just like flow and like being expressive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said.
Mm.
When would someone seek you out for art therapy? Or is that something that comes through like, oh, I think we need art therapy today? Or is it, I'm going, like someone might think,
Mm.
I'm going to therapy. Would they choose a regular, oh, like talk therapy versus art therapy? Can you give us, when
Yeah,
will we choose that?
that's a good question. So typically art therapy, often people will see it as the therapy for kids. It's like the therapy for kids because kids like art, quote unquote. Going back to that,
Right.
there's that framework and that belief. And so a lot of parents will want their kids to go to art therapy, and I think it's a beautiful thing to cultivate, that creativity being something that they cultivate through like developmental years. But in terms of like adults and art therapy, oftentimes I'll just say like if art therapy is an alternative mode to therapy, it's not for everyone. I will say it's for people who are drawn to it and people who are okay, there's so many pieces to this. I would say that if you've been in talk therapy for a while, you've been in some traditional modes of therapy for a while, and you feel like there's just something missing, or you feel like you kind of want a more experiential component to the processing, And maybe you feel like you've been talking about things or you've been exploring things, but you haven't been able to like articulate what's actually within, then I would say like that's when something like art therapy is really powerful because it gets to the like je ne sais quoi, it gets to the thing that you cannot express. And so that's when I would recommend it. But honestly, I would say it's not for everyone, but like if you feel the call to like express through color, if you're feeling the call to like heal in a way that is also really tapped into your inner child, which is really important because that's where all of our attachment wounding is, then that's the differentiation. And that's when I would say like art therapy is effective, really effective. Yeah.
So I want to come back around to talking about that in connection to how it's utilized with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, I got really curious as you're speaking about, because of your background and training, when you're looking at people's artwork, are you totally analyzing it as a therapist? Can you not? Is
Oh,
that
yeah. I'm thinking about it. So it's interesting. Like with art therapy, get into it. With art therapy, there are like two like approaches to it. There's like a more psychoanalytical approach where it's you're looking at like the symbols, and you're looking at the metaphors, you're looking at like, oh, if someone is really like, let's just say in an artwork, if it appears as though a lot of the attention has been focused on a certain color or a certain corner of the page, or there's just some imagery coming up and you interpret from that, that's psychoanalytic. And a lot of that will come from like Jungian psychology, if you're familiar. um and so from that lens, sometimes it is true that like if I look at, let's say, like a client's artwork or a person's artwork, even an artist's artwork at a gallery, I'll kind of like notice that a little bit. But I don't think that's the end all be all. And I think we can get too caught up in like the analytical part of it. And sometimes, like, yeah, sure, like the subconscious absolutely comes out on the page, but also sometimes it can just you can just let that be. And like that's just what it is, that's just what it is. And so, yeah, the other branch to art therapy is more of just like that process oriented art therapy that I was talking about, where we're just looking at like how do you somatically feel as you're creating the artwork? What's coming up? What emotions are there? And then let's process that through with the materials, crayons, pastels, like the texture of that. Yeah. So both and.
yeah, interesting.
Mm,
Yeah, that's
love
cool.
that question.
Are you okay with going a little bit over?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. So, in regards to the trauma, talk about that because that's a huge part of your work, right?
Hmm.
What has led you to working in healing trauma?
So it was honestly during my art therapy training that I started seeing an art therapist. I started doing like real, like deeper talk therapy work as well at the time. And I was just finding that something wasn't fully clicking. And there was just a missing, it just felt like in the art therapy program that I was in, it was a really great program, but I just knew that with there was just more in terms of like somatics and more in terms of how trauma keeps in the body and how art can relate to somatics. And that was coming up. It was coming up in like what I was studying, and it was also coming up in myself as I was in art therapy and like making art for myself and in that practice. And so
Can you
I
define what, when you say somatics, what does
Yeah.
that
So
mean?
somatics is the somatic therapy is the work of healing through the body. And so healing trauma through the body. Trauma, a little nutshell quickly. Trauma is held in the body. So our memory of trauma, we often think is held in the mind. We often think it's like a very psychological thing, which it is, but actually primarily it's held in the nervous system. And so when we work with trauma, I believe the most effective way to do it is to engage with the memory of the body. And so, like, we'll notice if we have experienced trauma before, if we're holding unprocessed trauma, a lot of us will have kind of like, we might have like contracted, hunched over postures. We might, feel like, I mean, if you just really think about how when we get triggered or when we get activated, when trauma comes up, unprocessed trauma comes up, if it's felt in the body, right? When you get triggered, you dissociate or you go into a fight or flight freeze response. It's all here. And so, where was I? Yeah, it's very crucial when it comes to trauma, and everyone has trauma, to be looking at it through like this body-based lens where we're allowing ourselves to actually tune into felt sensation and like like if the information of trauma is communicated through felt sensation, because this goes into a whole scientific thing that I'm like how far do I go into it?
As far as you want. Love this.
I'm trying to shorten it in my brain before I say it out loud. But like I said, like trauma isn't actually held in the mind. And so when we can process our emotions and process stuff that we hold through sensations and just being with our sensations, letting them move through us, because it's really just all energy. And we can do that also through art. That's how we actually can let trauma energy move through and heal.
So
Yeah.
when someone, like I was telling you about my students going through
Mm.
this intuitive expression journey to define their style and like figure out what they want to make as an artist, what they want to be known for, blocks come up constantly. And what I think is happening, and I'd love to know what you know is happening. I feel like it's that it's such an intimate experience, being alone with yourself, sitting there to express something from the deepest parts of you
Mhm.
and consciously trying to do that.
Mhm.
So you're setting out to do this and pull this out of you. That intimacy is so intense at times that it can cause us to like, I don't even want to go there. Kind of just shut down in that. And therefore, then you have a block and you can't even get to making the art. You can't even sit down to do it because that moment of just being with self, so raw,
Mhm.
is way too intense to sit with. What
Yeah.
is happening there? Really?
It's trauma. It's our shadows, right? It's the parts of us that we have been it's the parts of us that have been affected or hurt by experiences that we've lived through before, emotions that we've kept inside of us. A lot of why oftentimes when we do this really intimate work of like being with our art or being with our expression and like in many ways like reflecting, why we end up blocking like why we feel that like resistance, it's shame. It's shame around experiences that you've had in the past, the little girl in you, little boy in you who doesn't feel safe enough to come out and be heard and be held. These are our shadow parts. And it is a product of us having lived through things that have made us feel unsafe. And so, like that, when you're in the intimacy of your own space and you're, with this intention to meet yourself and all of your parts, it is, it's a really big thing. It's a really, really big thing that takes, I think, not just practice, but it takes like really gentle cultivation with yourself and like showing yourself like again and again, like, that I here in my adult body, an agency of what I am creating, and I am creating the space for myself to express and to heal through my expression. And the little inner child, younger part of me that is scared, or that, I'm finding this emotion is coming up and this emotion is attached to trauma that I've experienced when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, that part of you just wants to be held. And that part of us just wants to know that they are safe. And so if we can just, in that experience, in that container that we create for ourselves, just literally continue to remind ourselves, like, I am here in my adult body, I am safe. And through your art and through your expression and in the space, letting that be like a reparenting experience where you maybe just even imagine your inner child being with you, imagine that emotion being like outside of you, but like within your container, doing that more and more will start to allow you to see that, oh, okay, these resistances and these like blocks and these like, that like feeling that we get, that fear that we feel when we get like too deep or too close to what's, in truth, that actually brings us back to wholeness. And there's so much love in that. And yeah, there's like a big process of love, of self-love, and like just like self-integration that can happen when we can like lean into that resistance.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and sometimes I guess it feels like as if you were to be like staring into the sun.
Mm.
Too intense
Yeah.
to hold or be with,
Yeah.
focused to for too long. It's overwhelming.
So there's we call this like a tool, I suppose, a tool in somatic therapy called pendulation.
Hmm.
Also one called titration, but we can talk about pendulation. And so this is something that you can practice for yourself if you're finding yourself in a space where it's like it's getting too intense. Like I can feel I can feel the activation in my body. I can feel myself getting a little bit triggered. I know it's just a very shadowy thing. I don't feel fully ready to like deepen into it. That light is too bright. One thing that I always have my clients do is find a resource, even maybe before you begin creating, before you begin art making, like resource yourself first. So like ground yourself, maybe like close down your eyes and find a place in your body that feels safe and that feels like neutral or that feels positive. Like there will be a space in your body. It could be your eyeball, it could be your elbow, it could be your heart. That just feels like if you brought your awareness there, it feels good. It feels okay to be there. And so when you're in the process and you're going deep and you're in this like intense, intimate experience, it's like when you feel like it's a bit too much, you've met your edge, come back to that resource, hand on heart, however, breathe into that space for a few moments, breathe into it, and then move back into that like intensive, immersive space. Go back to your process and then like go back and forth, in and out, in and out, in and out. And over time, what this does is that it expands your window of tolerance. It wires your nervous system to be able to see that, okay, when I meet my edge, I actually know how to resource and come back to a place of like calm and safety. I can breathe, I'm okay. And then you go back in and then you do it again. And then you're like, your body just learns and then it gets less and less scary. And then you're like, oh, cool. And the longer you can stare, it's like exposure therapy in many
I was
ways.
just gonna say that, especially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
You can look in the sun and you're like, oh, okay. 10 minutes longer every time.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for that, tangible.
Yeah. You're so welcome.
That's so good. When one says life force energy, there's connection and like spiritual connections to that, or Kundalini energy, or things like that, or like other religious or spiritual meanings around that. Our chi, our creativity. What is that to you? And can it be cultivated, or is it something that's always awake and flowing through us and we're just not paying attention to it? What is that for you?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely the latter. To me, it's very much energy is always flowing. So like energy is always being like regenerated in us, but it's just a matter of whether we're paying attention to it, whether we're harnessing it in the right way, and whether we are also blocked. We're blocking it for whatever reason. Fear, repressed emotion, like there are many ways in which sometimes we block energy from like flowing the way that it should be, but it's flowing all the time. And so, when I think about like life force energy, like creativity is so much in the essence of life force energy because like everything in life is a creation. And especially as women, if you're a woman listening to this, you are literally a creator. You create life in your body. Even if you don't choose to have children, you like have the capacity to create. And so, like in a very, very big way, it's like you're the portal of creation. And so when we can, I don't know, like start to really see creativity not just as creativity in the sense of like I make art through my creativity, but like creativity in the sense of like, wow, like just by me being here and just by me like making decisions every day and me, interacting with the world and me living my life, I'm actually creating my life. And when we can like tap into this energy of like, I am a creator, like I am the portal of creation, that informs your art, that informs your expression to be even bigger, right? To be even like more inspired by your life. Like when you can see everything as a creation, then like everything informs each other. And I think that's just the most empowering thing. Like I think for artists, we can often see like, our art is our art and then our life is our life. But it's like your life is art and your art is a part of your life and your art holds your life as well. And so, yeah, I've gone on a rant, like on a tangent here, but yeah, I just think, I want more and more people, women, to really just see themselves as creative and just know that like you are creative, you are a creator. Like there's so much life force energy in you and just let that out in movement and like expression and the way you talk and the way that you hold yourself and the way that you dress. Like, and the more you cultivate it, the more you like express it, the more comes back to you. And then it gets to be this like giving and receiving within yourself and like how powerful is that? Like that's just all you need in life. So yeah.
Are there any like tangible things that you do to consciously
Ooh.
connect to that?
Yeah, breath.
Yeah.
Breath and movement. So literally like taking 3 minutes every day to very consciously breathe. And like there are also amazing ways that you can use your breath to, calm yourself down if you want to calm yourself down, like elongating your exhales, or if you want to like fire yourself up before a meeting or whatever, you can do breaths where your inhale is longer and your exhales are shorter, and that like gets the energy moving in a different way. I also just love doing somatic things. So like I'll shake, I'll like honestly intuitively dance sometimes. I'll put on music and I just like I just like let my body flail. And it's just when you feel, when you feel stagnant or when you feel stale or if you feel like kind of like creaky in your body sometimes, a lot of times that's just like energy that's not moving in the way that it wants to because we're all just kind of sitting here on our computers for far too long. um, and we gotta just, just move your body in some way. If you like to sing, sing. If you like to, I don't know, dance with a paintbrush, like do that,
And a trampoline.
Get a trampoline. Yeah, or like, get those like, what do you
Treadmill.
call those? Those yoga, not yoga balls, but those big balls that people like sit on. Just balance up and down, anything to get that like fire. I always like feel it like it's fire to get that fire moving a bit.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that. I like roller skating.
Ooh, I'm
Roller
terrified.
skate and paint is pretty cool. Doing that at the same time. That's
Have you done
pretty
that before? How?
roller skates on and like roll over to your pain and roll over
Oh,
to
that's amazing. Okay.
like just
Because it's
skate.
actually so fluid.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Dancing too, but there's the like you when you put roller skates on and you're painting, you can't help but like be having fun and be also conscious of the fact that if you move wrong, you're gonna fall. So it's like a really playful
Mm.
exercise.
Oh, I love that. I would totally try that if I were not terrified of roller skating.
Wear
I'm a
a
terrible.
helmet, you'll be fine.
That's true. And also some really
Sorry.
thick pants. I don't know.
Yeah. I wear wrist guards too because I was like, if this breaks, we're in big trouble, you know? Um, you have so much that you are life force creating in the world. You have a podcast, you're mentoring people, you are doing art therapy sessions and group programs, and I just love everything you are doing and sharing and how you're serving in the world. And it's exciting to me, and I want to share you with everybody I know. And what do you have coming up that you feel would resonate with an audience of artists who might be interested in exploring art therapy and facing some of their own trauma in a creative way?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the space to talk today and chat about all of this. It's been so wonderful. And yeah, in terms of what's coming up right now is that I do have my foundational healing program called Alive that is going to be enrolling for its third round. And it's a year-long program that combines trauma-informed somatic healing with some coaching, with art therapy, with nervous system work, and a little bit of energetics as well. And so it kind of like uses all of my modalities. There are modules in there that teach you how to process your pain, that teach you how to rewire your nervous system, how to work with the body, how to reconnect with the body, and like to your felt sensation, how to, come into more presence. It's like a mind body healing program, but with done in a very creative way with biweekly calls. And we do a lot of art therapy in our biweekly calls and a lot of somatic healing and a lot of also conscious movement, different types of like somatic. I love combining somatic and art therapy. So a lot of our calls are that. So we like just, yeah, we use art and we use the body and we release and we let go of stuff. And yeah, every call we have different topics based off of like what, the ladies, the women in the community are kind of looking for at this time. So sometimes we do work around anger, sometimes we do work around our inner child, sometimes it's around boundaries. Um, and so, yeah, it's just like a very beautiful, all-encompassing healing program for anyone interested in like starting to process some of that pain or some of those shadows or some of that stuff that you've just been feeling like you're holding in. And yeah, with just different modalities there for you to play with.
That sounds so supportive and
Yeah, it's fun.
and energizing, but also in a gentle way, which I
In a
think
gentle way, always in a gentle way, and in a playful way. And yeah, it's year long, so it is very like there's community and you're held. And it's cool. I'm all about just community and sisterhood, and like it's just so important and so needed. Groups. So yeah, that's kind of that's the big next program that I'm offering at the moment.
amazing. So you can connect with Jade at it's Jade Chung
Mhm.
on Instagram, and then jadechunghealing.com will have those links below. But you also were so generous to share a free guided meditation, mind, body, soul healing meditation with 9D energy. What is that? I've heard about 5D, but I didn't know 9D was around now. So
Yeah, I mean they're all All the dimensions are around at all times. No, it's an energy that I channel from the ninth dimension. And yeah, it's a beautiful energy. Yeah, it's a beautiful energy. It's transmitted through light codes, and it's really great for cleansing, chakra cleansing. So yeah,
Beautiful.
definitely check that out.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that will also be included in this. So, Jade, is there anything else you would like to share with?
Mhm. What's coming forward really just simply is, to all of the artists listening and all of the non-artists listening who know that they're meant to make art in some way. It's just like keep making art from your truth and I don't know, like don't let the standards or the structures or like even like the pressure necessarily of there are these fire sirens driving by and distracting me. Give me a sec here. Yeah. Just honestly keep doing you. Keep doing you in your truth. And like, I don't know, there are a lot of naysayers in the world and a lot of just feeling like you have to keep up or feeling like you have to do things in a certain way. And ultimately, the way that you're meant to do things is your own way. And so it's just like keep using that intuition, like keep expressing from truth.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you, Jade, so much. Such an honor to get to talk with you and pick your brain and hear your expertise in this matter. It is really dear to my heart. And I know many of my students and new listeners will gain so much from the awareness of what you shared. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine, for having me on here and just holding space and asking the most amazing questions. And for the work you do. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
It's so important. Thank
Thank you.
Thank
Truly.
you.
Thank you so much for listening and being a part of Her Ink Empire. Remember, this is only the beginning. Your empire is already unfolding. Until next time, stay bold, stay aligned, and stay true to you as you build your artistic legacy.